getting the resources up and out and of course developed. And we have banished from our lexicon the word exploitation, and so everything now is about sustainable development of the resources. Next slide. This is an overview of the work of the ministry. Of course, the large green ball is policy. All the policy and planning takes place within the ministry. As of January of this year, we have established a petroleum management division within the ministry, and of course previously and still existing the natural resources management division. To the right are the logos of the four entities which come under the ministry. The first, of course, and most familiar is the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, followed by the Guyana Forestry Commission. The third would be the Guyana Board, and at the bottom is the logo for the new to-be commission, Guyana Petroleum Commission of Guyana. Sorry, next slide. This gives an idea of what we do. Gold last year, we recorded the highest declaration ever in the history of the country, 713,000 ounces. The previous high was 465,000 ounces. And as you would see, 70% of this came from small and medium scale miners. So yes, we have two large companies operating in Troy Resources from Australia and Aurora Gold Mines, a Canadian company. But the bulk of the declaration, the production is continuing to come from small miners. As of June, we are at 317 almost 318,000 ounces, and we are within target to again repeat 700,000 ounces this year. We are doing a lot of work on ensuring that small miners get access to lands, and so there is a whole initiative of the syndicates. Minister Booms is working on that. We are reviewing all of our laws and regulations, and we are updating, and we are going to be reconfiguring our mining school to make it more relevant with our green state trust. Next slide, please. In the area of other minerals, we are doing very well with diamond declarations. Again, that has been up, and we have just completed a review of the Kimberley diamond process to ensure that we are mining and declaring what it is mined in Guyana and not importing diamonds from elsewhere. Bauxite is doing very well, relatively speaking, of course, but we are making a profit and have seen an uptake in both production and export, as I believe China's economy is starting to come out of the slumber. In 2018, going into 2019, we'll be starting manganese production after several decades. Bauxite Minerals and Mining has bought over a manganese consortium out in Port Kaituma, Region 1, and that is due to restart, as I said, next year and into 2019. Next slide, please. Lumber. Well, forests continue to be a bit of a challenge for us. As you know, when government changed, we were faced with the reality of what we can safely describe as a kind of rapacious actions of some companies in our forests. We have managed to excise them, remove them from the forest, and we are right now, again because of our Green State Trust, tightening up on regulations and ensuring that we practice better foresting and ensuring that we are certified. We are on the verge of inking with the EU FLEC. That's the Forest Law, Enforcement, Governance and Trade Voluntary Partnership Agreement, which will allow us full access into European markets, and that should be done before the end of the year. To date, we have already earned over $20 million in royalties from timber, and we are continuing. The ministry will also, and I'm to meet hopefully next week with the private sector bodies about putting some restrictions, not banning, but some restrictions on the importation of plywood, which is threatening our local species. Next slide, please. I know that many of you are interested in what is happening in oil. Okay. In 2015 May, ExxonMobil had been doing some drilling and advised government that they had made a significant find offshore Guyana, 123 miles offshore, and lies as the crow flies, I believe, off the coast of Unity and the east coast of Demerara. Since then, we've been working with the company to understand what is happening. We did 4 appraisal wells, and we're able to confirm that there's a minimum of 800 million barrels of oil in the Liza field and a possible 1.4 billion barrels. We also did some other work, and there was a development just below Liza, which we call Liza Deep. We made another discovery there. all made at a lesser amount. And we've made 2 further discoveries in a well called Payara and one called Snook. We, in fact, today I should get a report on one of them in terms of volume. So we have made 3 significant discoveries. Not the other 2 have not been as large as Lisa, but we are confirming that we have substantial deposits of oil and gas. And Minister Patterson may wish to say something about this later on. But apart from petroleum, the liquid, we've also been advised that there is a large quantity of gas available. And Minister Patterson and I have been working together to see how we can bring that gas ashore for energy generation. So since 2016, in particular this year, we are working with several agencies. The Commonwealth Secretariat, we're drafting new laws. We've created a commission bill, which is in Parliament now, to create a new regulatory body. We have worked with the Ministry of Finance to create a sovereign wealth fund. That document and bill is going through several iterations and having international experts look at it. We are updating our legislation and we are preparing for first oil in 2020. Next slide. In terms of petroleum management, as I said, we are building capacities. We have signed the MOU with the Petroleum Institute of Mexico. They're providing training. We are working closely with other developmental partners, which I'll show later on. We have created the Petroleum Department within the ministry, working with the ministries of public infrastructure, the Civil Defense Commission, the Coast Guard, and the EPA to ensure that there is an oil spill response in the event of an unlikely event of an accident. And we, as I said, are creating the fiscal and regulatory framework for the coming production. Next slide. This sets out what we're doing in terms of oil spill response. And to add to that, of course, we, being a member of the Regional Security System of CARICOM, we are also part of SEDEMA, which is the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. So in terms of a response, we can expect some response there. And Minister of Foreign Affairs and I are also working on a draft MOU that exists in draft between the governments of Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana for assistance also to be provided for oil spill and other technical support. Next slide. So opportunities for collaboration. As there's much happening, of course we need experts of every kind, economists, accountants, lawyers, we need engineers, and as we roll out, going into production, we will need assistance. I've already met with Professor Griffith about support to the University of Guyana, and of course how we can help to unfold that program that he has. And we are also, as I said, working in tandem with other agencies, both locally and overseas. Most applications really would go through Ministry of Business in terms of whether an oil refinery is needed, and a modular one, a small one. Government has received some advice that a large refinery to process 100,000 plus barrels would not make economic sense for government, but we're not dissuading private investors from coming up with plans and submitting them to go invest if they so desire. Next slide. We in the ministry are focusing on 4 areas for corporate social responsibility. This is another area that some of you may wish to become involved in. We are introducing youth to the natural resources sector, taking them out to different parts of the island, not only for them to see extraction, but also get an appreciation for the environment and how it should be preserved. We're creating green spaces in many communities, and particularly in some of the top tier major communities to do so. We have a youth mentorship program where we will be speaking about leadership, and I will be speaking to Professor Griffith about this. And we are also working to restore lands that have been mined up, both of course to ensure that they are restored and they're reforested, and also to remove the scourge of vector-borne diseases borne by mosquitoes. Next slide. This is an idea of the support that we're getting internationally, and I wish to say, contrary to the belief that we try to do it alone. So on any given day, we are receiving advice and support from experts from the UN, the World Bank, the IMF should really be up on this board now, the Inter-American Development Bank, Conservation International, the US government through its Energy Governance Capacity Initiative, the Kingdom of Norway, Government of Trinidad and Tobago, World Wildlife Fund, European Union, Government of Canada, the Commonwealth, Russian Federation, Government of Chile, where we, in fact, will be doing an MOU soon, and of course, Government of Mexico. Next slide. So looking ahead, we are building capacities at the ministry and all of its companion agencies. We are working to strengthen the laws. We are increasing production of gold, bauxite, manganese, and of course, we prepared for first oil in 2020. We are focusing this year and going ahead on water as a resource. I don't believe that we are doing enough or are paying any attention at all to water, rather just allowing it to run down to the sea and without harnessing some of it and looking at its future value. We are working to ensure that there's local content in the oil industry and that it's bringing the laser fee to production in 2020. Contracts have already been given up by Exxon and its partners, Hess and CNOC, the construction of the vessel. The vessel goes into dry dock in Singapore in November of this year, and the municipal partner is likely to visit to see its progress on about April of 2018. We are implementing our CSR framework, and as I said before, working with other ministries, business, finance, public infrastructure, agriculture, to achieve our green economy and sector. So this is an overview of what is happening, and I try to keep it as short as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We're going to hear next from our Minister of Business. Let me remind you that for the persons who came after we began, we want to maximize the opportunity for every potential questioner in the context of time constraints we've got to be part of the process. So please, when we get to that point, we want one question, focused question, or one comment that is concise. Delighted now to introduce and invite Minister of Business.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. Colleague ministers, Vice Chancellor, members of the Private Sector Commission Executive, senior government officials, Guyanese from Guyana, from overseas, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very good day to you all. Sometimes I feel as if we're not evolving fast enough, because we should all have had about 3 arms by now to support all these devices that we have. Anyhow, since assuming office, I've had the pleasure of attending events, diaspora events in Canada, in New York, in London, in the Bahamas. And what is clear to me, even from this small sampling size, is that Guyanese, no matter where they are looking for opportunities to expand their engagement with Guyana. This is what I was able to glean from these few formal engagements with the diaspora. As Minister of Business, my key areas of focus when it comes to the diaspora have to do with investment and tourism. In particular, I would like to see the diaspora investing more in Guyana and also visiting Guyana in greater numbers. But when it comes to investing in Guyana, our investment laws do not discriminate between domestic and foreign investors. When it comes to tourism, there is no special treatment for people from any particular country or group outside of the normal visa requirements that are different for different countries. Now I'm raising this because what has also been coming across, perhaps less formally, is that there is an expectation among sections of the diaspora that there should be some special treatment for the Guyanese diaspora, which would be different from how we treat local Guyanese and would be different from how we treat foreigners. There is a genuine interest in Guyana's well-being, seen through the eyes of genuine Guyanese whose perspectives have been sharpened by their experiences outside of Guyana and their exposure to social, industrial, institutional, financial, political, and business practices that are very different from those that prevail inside of Guyana. But for me, the important question is simply, how relevant is the diaspora to Guyana's development? And if we're going to answer this question in a way that is objective, then we must be able to measure the contribution of the diaspora in ways that allow us to attach numerical values to some set of indicators based on verifiable data and information. Otherwise, any discussion is likely to be academic. And perhaps, given the fact that it is the University of Guyana that is convening this conference, it is appropriate for there to be an academic aspect to these discussions. But I am not an academic, and I don't bring any special diaspora-related statistics or data to this discussion, unfortunately. So what contribution can I make to this discussion? As Minister of Business, and as Minister with responsibility for tourism in Guyana, I can share with you a perspective that is grounded in the needs of our country and how the Ministry of Business is going to address those needs. Ultimately, almost every government seeks the development of an economy that can sustain as many of its citizens as possible in decent work, and that can generate revenues for the running of the country and for providing proper government services. It is with this in mind that the Ministry of Business has identified the following broad objectives which we are directing our efforts towards through our strategic plan. 1, improving the business environment. 2, increasing investments. 3, increasing exports of value-added products. And 4, increasing economic opportunities for vulnerable sections of our population. As I mentioned, we are also the ministry with responsibility for tourism, and we apply the same set of objectives to that industry. Tourism is classified as an exporting industry since it brings in foreign earnings and it represents a value-added service. I believe something is ringing here, I'm sorry. Yes. Apologize for that. Yes. So we treat tourism as a value-added export in our ministry strategic plan. And for tourism, our key objectives are similar to the broad objectives of the ministry. 1 is to improve the regulatory environment in which the tourism industry has to operate. 2 is increasing investments in the tourism sector. 3, increasing visitor arrivals. And 4, the development and promotion of community-based tourism in Guyana and the training and support for small operators in the tourism sector. We are also joining the rest of the world in promoting sustainable tourism as a tool for development. Sustainable tourism is the broad term that is used to describe a model of tourism where the environmental impact is low and there's a net positive economic impact at the local level. Community-based tourism, where communities are major beneficiaries of organized local tourism projects, is an area which in Guyana has already demonstrated successful outcomes and which we want to continue to improve and to promote. So having outlined the main objectives of our ministry in the areas of business and tourism, it is my view that our ministry can relate to the diaspora through those same key objectives. Objective number 1, improving the business environment, is a win-win objective for all Guyana. As you know, businesses operating in Guyana face many challenges, which at the end of the day increase the cost of doing business in Guyana and make those businesses less competitive. This is a big problem for businesses, especially our exporting industries, and for our consumers who ultimately pay the price of commercial inefficiencies due to slow and uncertain processes of business transactions. This impacts the diaspora, whether as investors, business partners, visitors, or retirees. And therefore, any improvements to the ease of doing business in Guyana is an improvement that will positively impact the diaspora. Objective number 2, increasing investments, is clear and simple. We would like to see more investments coming from the diaspora in different areas of our economy. We believe that the diaspora has the financial resources, the expertise, and the linkages to make certain investment projects viable in Guyana. So we are targeting the diaspora as potential investors because we feel that there is sufficient mutual interest to exploit. Objective number 3, increasing our value-added exports. This is critical to the rebalancing and to the sustainability of Guyana's economy. The industries that can bring foreign earnings into our economy are the ones which we need to encourage and which we would like to see the diaspora involved in. Once again, we recognize the value of the diaspora in bringing new ideas and fresh practices to some of our industries that are languishing. We plan to partner with the private sector in reforming some of the underperforming value-added sectors so that they can focus on becoming more competitive and reaching foreign markets. We see this as an opportunity for the diaspora to participate in a way that is profitable and in a way that is aligned with the development priorities of the government. And objective number 4, increasing economic opportunities for vulnerable sections of our population. We feel is an opportunity for the diaspora to partner with the thousands of small producers who have the will to work and to produce, but lack the resources to process and package their products and to get their products to markets. Those who understand the requirements and know how to operate in the international marketplace can form viable partnerships with our local producers. So when it comes to business, we certainly have a strong interest in targeting diaspora investments, and we will continue to do so with a focus on improving how we do so and making the investor experience, especially the gestation period, a more efficient one and a more predictable one. When it comes to tourism, the diaspora is still our biggest market, even though the Cubans are coming here by the thousands to shop. Guyanese are returning home in even greater numbers. And these numbers are on the rise. We had a record year last year. We recorded a 14% rise in visitor arrivals over the previous year. And for the first half of this year, we are showing a 5% increase over last year. Now, I read in today's newspapers that Jamaica has announced earnings of $1.4 billion from tourism in the first half of this year. I'm assuming it's US dollars. It is US dollars. Now, Guyana's total exports for the entire year last year were just around $1.4 billion. So we have a lot of catching up to do. Guyana's framework for Green State Development Strategy can accommodate a much greater role for tourism within our vast hinterland areas. We have the raw product, but we need to lay down the infrastructure for its development. So we need private investors to come on board, and the diaspora is a welcome partner in this regard. Yes, we want you to come back home and lime and sport, but we also want you to partner with us in developing a much bigger tourism product. The Jamaican figures just give an indication of what is out there in terms of the scale of the industry. The Green State, with its protected areas and its focus on renewable energy and environmentally friendly economic development, can take tourism to new heights, way beyond what we can imagine. We can't get there alone. We need the right partners on board. So to close this off, my conclusion, without the support of any scientific data, is that there is plenty of space for the diaspora to insert itself into the local economy in ways that are beneficial to the people of Guyana. And yes, the diaspora is relevant to Guyana's development. Very relevant. Thank you very much.
Last but not least, our Minister of Public Infrastructure, Honorable David Bass.
Thank you very much, Vice VC. Ladies and gentlemen, colleague ministers, friends, all. It's always difficult to be the last one after such navigators of business and natural resources, and of course, Minister Hughes. And of course, Minister Yu. It's my pleasure to be here, my pleasure to be able to address such a distinguished group of Diaspora members, local Guyanese. And it's even a greater pleasure because I'm often, this should be a very easy task for all of us, our ministers here. Of course, I would like to feel that we're pushing at the open door, trying to get you to come and help and invest in Guyana. I'm sure the underlying reason why you're all here is because you want to. You just don't know where exactly you can contribute. So that's what we're here for. Not to tell you to come, but you want to come, just to show you what's possible. While I did not bring a presentation because 10 minutes wouldn't do justice. It's about 100, it's almost 200 slides now, and so I wouldn't probably get past the first two. But without the presentation, I suspect one of the main reasons I'm here, particularly, is to address some of the issues and the challenges that I would have experienced or you would have experienced while trying to invest in Guyana. This is from my perspective. For the last 2 years in the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. Firstly, the current status of infrastructure in Guyana is not where it should be. It is not of the greatest standard. We all know that. We could pick any particular sector and you would realize we could have done more. And this has nothing to do with any particular government. There's been several governments before. It is not to blame any particular politician. It is just to collectively blame all of us as Guyanese in the way we've approached infrastructure in Guyana. Previously, and unfortunately even up to now, it is done based on the electoral cycle. 5 years cycles, maybe 5, maybe 10. If you're confident you're going to retain victory in the polls, you may have a 10-year cycle. But for a country on the crust of greatness like Guyana, we need a longer, more in-depth infrastructure roadmap. Our last attempt, I think, with the National Development Strategy, I think that's 2000, updated subsequently, but never holistically implemented. So what we have currently, what we're battling with currently, is several good projects standalone. Several good standalone projects that were done through the years, all the way through our independence. However, they are not tied into an overall developmental plan for the country. So therefore, obviously, the full benefit of that project cannot be derived, or is not going to be derived. And that is the first challenge which collectively we can address. Because you don't need to be in Guyana to contribute to a developmental plan. It's a virtual world. You can actually, there is, on the ministry website, there is a framework or plan. You can look at it, integrate it, and bring suggestions, have public stakeholder meetings. Virtually, physically, such as these, and then you can actually develop a plan. When there is a plan developed, can actually take out the part which are interested to you and your colleague and work on those. I want to give an example by way when I say it, how infrastructural master plan is developed in the electoral cycles. And it's one which Minister Gaskin used just a minute ago. Our passenger arrival in Guyana is up 14%, that's right, and it's up, well, since I assumed office in May 2015, it's up 8% in 2015, and 14 in 2016, and we're up 4% of the 14. And the reason why this may sound like a really, really good thing, and it is for tourism, but for infrastructure is not. I'm about to complete an airport which you probably would have passed and seen today, CGIA, and a terminal, which was developed as a project in 2011-19. It was the really good initial approaches was made to the government of China. And I'm not saying anything bad, it's a much needed lengthy runway, but I'm developing an airport. And at those initial projections in 2011, the projected growth for passenger growth based on what the design build contract by Chinese firm was 4% per annum. So you understand that I've been completing an airport at the end of this, a terminal building at the end of this year, which based on if the current passenger arrivals and departures continue, will be over capacity in 2019. So that is what I'm saying is when we're not actually developing an overall logistic plan, because maybe at the time when we were doing the airport, we may have not had a lengthy discussion with our colleague partners in tourism and in natural resources and those things. Of course, the oil and gas sector, the fine in 2015 has a tremendous impact on that. But those are the issues in which we're grappling with, and those are the issues which I do think, as a country, we have to sit down to the table and start again. My ministry has started a developmental plan. It runs because as I started to say, those of you who are confident that they will be there again, do longer than 5-year plans. Being confident that I'll be there again, I did a longer than 5-year plan, so it's available. But specifically linked to that word, how can you get involved? How can you engage? Technical support. We would love you to work with us. As I said, you don't have to be here physically. It's a virtual world, you can actually contribute online, periodically coming, engage in projects, master planning and those issues. Of course, I know the usual complaints from Diaspora about feeling unwelcome by the local industry when you come. That is a real and true problem. But we are human natures. You also have to understand the local industry. I'm sure they will welcome you, and as I do if you come to work with us. Not to human nature when you come to say it, or you come to lecture to us, and when you come to say it, and that is what I find with my local engineers when I introduce them to new ideas. There's a resistance, because you see the people come as though they're lecturing to the persons here, and should avoid that, because it seems as though some of my engineers and my technical persons feel as though the person from outside seem to think that they're less of an engineer because they stay to remain in Guyana. And I know it's not an issue with this room, but I'm just warning you, I'm just forewarning you, one of the reluctances that we have. At least someone there knows it. So the issue is, we know and we agree that you have superior technical knowledge, but you also have to appreciate for our local industry, we have vast practical knowledge. But there's no other way we could have kept the country functioning without the practical nuances that they do. There's a pump and Buxton that was manufactured in 1924. It's still operational. Still operational, still serving comes in from somewhere and says, I'm coming here to make you better, sometimes you should say to me, let me see what you have and let me see how together we can work. So I think that is one of the issues which I think is a great takeaway. Secondly, managing expectations. And this is the issue, those are the two issues that I find my diaspora colleagues always talk about, managing expectations. When I was campaigning, and I think when myself and the other ministers and everyone that was involved in the coalition were campaigning, everybody, Facebook message, emails, encouragement, anybody that was supportive of our cause said, so when are you coming back? Next day. And we won. And we're waiting. I'm glad to see that some of you are here. I hope you're just not visiting, but we're waiting. Because the expectations, I mean, you have the love, but managing the expectations, that is something we have to do. Despite the much wanted 50% increase for ministers, you heard about it, I mean, it's all about it. A cabinet minister, gross, only collect 4,000 US dollars gross. And then after we make our contributions and those things and give back, we carry on about 3,000 US dollars. And it's unlikely, and I want to be very frank with the person, it's unlikely unless you work with the project, you're coming on an internationally funded project, it's unlikely that you can come and engage and work with the government in the government sector and earn more than one. That is the reality of how the salary scales are, because we are being tough at it. And for some of you highly trained and skilled persons, the step down may be too great. And that is the expectation. So therefore we have to figure out, well, okay, then you cannot come back and work as a salary worker. You can come and there are other ways to contribute. So therefore, obviously, you must always manage the expectation and do that. And so you don't become disappointed with us. Finally, before I will close off with just a few investment projects, I want to say one final thing. We're developing a P3 model, public-private partnership, which we want to, that is done, Minister of Business and Minister of Finance are taking the lead on it. And that model is geared specifically to you in the private sector, to partner with us, a model whereby you can form legislative framework which will protect your investment, so that you can actually feel safe investing in Guyana, confident that what of investment you would have made. There's a legal framework backing it. Right now there is not. It is done by a project basis. You have one type of project, say like the Berbice Harbor Bridge, Berbice Crossing. You have other types that the persons would put together, like Marriott. But it's done project by project, and it's not specific, and investors are clueless as to what the framework is in Guyana. So that is, when that is in place, that may be the most tangible place where you can invest and contribute in Guyana. Finally, I will give you my top 3 or 4 areas where I would like Diaspora's assistance. The new Silk Road for Guyana, Linden Lethem. We're starting the first, it's actually 450 miles. We're actually funding, at the government of Guyana, we're funding the first 102 miles. That card is all the way to the Mura, which is just below Madia, but it opens up tremendous opportunities from here to Mbura, but also there's opportunities from Mbura all the way on to Lethem. And you may not be in the road construction, but it's strange in a person, when I did it, there's a Silk Road, person simply concentrate on the building of the road. And they go, they send a MOU from someone who has access to billions of dollars, just sent by letter. And but there are other issues, there are other particularly unique interests that you can have. Tourism, your farm opens up again. The land, you are passing through 450 miles of untouched territory, natural resources, with forestry, tourism, industry, so many other areas. So therefore, obviously, instead of looking just simply to invest in a business along in the coast, look at that corridor. Because when completed, and it's going to be completed, because we've started, and once we start something of this magnitude, we cannot stop. When completed, it's estimated that we have 35,000 containerized trucks from Brazil, the Roraima area, annually. And it will grow, and there's a cost study already. And it will grow. So obviously they will need services. So if you know where it's going to be, you know it all, and it's all saved except the Irokama reservation, saved except the Amerindian title land. It's all open state land. Don't just concentrate your ideas on what you see here in the coast, it's a wider, bigger country. There is, Minister Trotman mentioned the energy sector, natural gas used to power and electricity. That's a goal. It's transitional. I know that somebody will ask if maybe a product between renewable energies and using natural gas, when we committed to go as close as possible to renew by 2025. However, it's transitional. The underlying cause, obviously, is stability. Energy stability is ours, and energy security. The natural gas is in Guyana territory. It belongs to us. Price stability, availability of products, and obviously the cost to the end to the consumer. With myself and Minister Gaskin made a very good proposal that we should have a business park around the land, the location where we land. So if you're into the light industrial manufacturing, this is something that you should start considering, because when it's landed there, runs cheaper power. And if we start now, we're looking at 2019, 2020, it should be fully developed. So if we have that opportunity here, right here and now. Renewable energies, particularly in the off-grid location. A lot of persons are, and those are the locations which we subsidize, heavily subsidized. But because of this subsidy, that is one of the contributing factors, not the main factor. One of the contributing factors to the price of electricity as a whole. Because GPL obviously is a behemoth, so therefore obviously you can produce electricity 10, 12 cents at the new feed-in booth, selling over there, but I'm selling countrywide. In Bartica, it's electricity cost there to produce, because we have to ship and very agent said goes up to 42 cents, 40 cents. And let them get 50 cents to the consumer. When you put that in collectively, that is the end product is what each and every one of us pay. If we can disaggregate those areas, which is a priority, the off-renewable locations, that would obviously bring the cost down and give the outlying communities an even more reliable solution. How am I doing over there? Bad timing. There's Port Georgetown, shore bases, on-shore bases. That is an area, 90% of our imports come through Port Georgetown. So in the interim, while we're waiting to develop and making plans to develop a port harbor, a containerized port, Port Georgetown should be renewed. I have some other issues, being the Ministerial road work, which I'm particularly taking up time now. I'm running late here. Precaution. I'm big on new roads, and these roads can be tolled, but in addition to being tolled, they open up a tremendous road region 3 free and easy to Sand Hills, down to Goshen. There is the East Bank, East Coast, Phase 2. Phase 1 is the one that you know about, is funded by the party funded by the government. But Phase 2 continues on all the way to Smooth Dyke and beyond. New lands. Don't just look at the cost of building a road, look at the cost of one to be told. It could be you have open new agricultural land or whatever you want to do. So therefore you can integrate the package with that. Finally, I'll close on my vanity project, because as I said, I'm just speaking from my notes. Imagine if I was the word construction program. My vanity project, which you must have a vanity project. Which somebody would ask you, well, where does it contribute to the development of the country? You say, well, make it feel better. We're doing the seawall. that's the work, that is the area from Marriott, Pegasus, all the way down to the pump out, kitty pump outs and beyond. Obviously, we're doing a boardwalk, walkways, concession areas, those things. And the single mode visited recreation area in Guyana. So therefore, that's a vanity project which I would start next year. So hopefully, when you come, like you do now, you have a better experience on Sunday evening. So with those few words, I'd like to thank you very much.
Thank you. We have an opportunity in a challenge. We have an opportunity not to delay lunch too long. And we have a challenge of having to manage the limited time that we've got not to delay lunch too long. So what I'd like to do is the following. I'll take one question or comment from this section in front. If there is one, that section in the back. And then we'll do one from the back there and one from the front. If it's a question, we want to keep it to one question. If it's a comment, we want to keep it to a concise comment. And after the questions and comments will have been put, we'll have a round of responses from the ministers. And then we'll go into lunch. The lunch will have a two-part to it. Professor Suresh Narayan will, while we are eating, begin to deliver his keynote address. And right after the keynote address, before we get to questions, assuming we have time, we want to do a presentation by Go Invest, or I think from the publishers of the Invest magazine, the Minister of Business and the head of Go Invest. So we'll take the first question or comment in this first section. We'll move the portable mic back there. If I don't see your hand, I can determine whether you are going to be there. So we'll take Paul, and again, concise, brief, one. Go.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the ministers for excellent presentations, very informative. I also like what the Minister of Infrastructure said about the road from Linden to Letem. I think it could be our little Silk Road in Guyana. However, in the previous administration, when it came to infrastructure, there were a lot of criticism of poor work done by contractors, and there were accusations of corruption. What precisely is the present government doing to ensure that in these infrastructure programs and all the programs we are dealing, building roads and so, that we are having systems in place that can ensure proper work and that we could avoid corruption?
Very good. We'll move to the back. I need to see a hand in the back. I see a hand, that would be the second, and then we move to this side.
Good afternoon, and likewise I would like to thank the ministers for their contribution. My question is directed to Minister Hughes, and I would like to know first of all, I commend your efforts on ICT training to bring the skills level of the young Guyanese in particular up to par where they need to be in the 21st century. And I would like to know what sort of coordination is taking place between your ministry and the Ministry of Education to ensure that the skills that are imparted to the young people and others in the ICT field are recognizable or are recognized in Guyana and quite possibly outside of Guyana.
Very good. So we'll go to this section. I don't see any hand in the back, so we'll go there to Mr. Ford, and then the final one is here.
Yes, good afternoon. Minister Hughes and Minister Trotman, e-governance, e-government platforms are developed essentially for transparency, accountability, participation, and things like that. Question, where can we find the contract for the between ExxonMobil and the Guyana government? And if it's not there, can you tell us the legal basis for it not being available on the website?
Okay, so the final comment or question?
Thank you, good afternoon. Congratulations to the...
Hold the mic closer to your...
Sorry. Congratulations to the organizers, thanks to the ministers for their presentations, especially as the comments which they made reflect an evolving of the positions of the various ministries. So I have two quick questions. I know you said one, sir, but...
We'll take one question.
Fine. Okay. So, in relation to local content, how can the diaspora companies get involved in local content? One modality is to establish a local company. The Minister of Business said that there will be different arrangements for local resident Guyanese as against diaspora, and I'm wondering, was there any thought given to having a special arrangement for diaspora companies other than establishing a local company? And also the public-private partnership, where could we find the policy? Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much for the questions, comments. We'll start with a round of responses, comments with Minister Trotman, and we'll go to Minister Patterson, Minister Hughes, and Minister of Business. Minister Trotman will have to leave right after he makes his comments because he has a commitment at 1:30.
Thank you. I'll answer the question about the contract. The contract with Exxon was signed in 1999 by Mrs. Janet Jacob as president and of course Exxon Mobil. When we took over government, we as a cabinet and as a government analyzed the contract, and I should say that on the 26th of May 2015, when there was an inauguration right next door for the president of the new government, Venezuela issued an edict redrawing its boundary lines and bringing its new boundaries, its new territorial waters to take in the Liza field. And I deliberately mentioned this morning that Liza lies, as the crow flies, 123 miles off the coast of Unity and the east coast of Libertad. So Venezuela altered its boundary lines and said that Liza fell within its territorial waters. That happened on the 26th of May 2015. They found themselves in some trouble when they had realized that they had taken in some sea space of Suriname and of Barbados and a few other places, and they pulled back that line, but they did not pull back their clear intentions. The point is that we have received advice that we should be very careful and cautious about what we put into the public domain right now. This year is a very critical year for Guyana. It's the closest we've ever come in 50 years of independence to definitively resolving our border controversy with Venezuela. The UN Secretary General in November of last year, the outgoing UN Secretary General, as we know, instituted a process whereby he put aside this year, 2017, to be a year to see if any resolution could be achieved. If by November 30th of 2017 no resolution is achieved, it is expected that the matter will be referred to the International Court of Justice. So the point is, the lawyers out of Cambridge University and McGill University in Canada and elsewhere that have been retained by the government have advised us that we should be cautious about putting all of our business out there in the public at this point. So the government has no interest in hiding anything, but as a lawyer, I know what it is to be under advisement. When I tell a client right now, as you're heading to court, be cautious about what you say in public. It can and will be used against you in private. And when you are a small fledgling state without a large military force, and you have a neighbor that has already said what its intentions are, you have to be careful, because this is our national patrimony, and this is the closest we've ever come in 50 years to actually putting our hands in it. As a child, I've been told about Guyana's potential. This is the closest we've actually come to actually touching this potential and realizing it. Secondly, Section 4 of the Petroleum Act puts a restriction on government publicizing the country. This is a section that was amended by the former government in 1997. Mr. Bar Jagdi was then president. And so there's a non-disclosure clause put into the new Petroleum Act. It was a 1986 act. It was amended in 1997 by the Minister of Petroleum at the time was the president himself, Mr. Jagdi. And so there's a restriction on the publication of reports except with the consent of the licensee. That is the wording of Section 4 of the Petroleum Act. The licensee being Exxon and Hess and CNOC have to give permission to the government if we are to disclose. So we have asked the Commonwealth Secretariat to review the legislation. They are completing that process, and we hope to get the draft by the latest October. So until such time, that is the law, and that is the advice that we are receiving. And as I said, there's nothing magical about it. It's a contract that we inherited. but for strategic and other reasons, we believe that for now we should hold. And as I said, the clause and all the clauses of the Petroleum Act are under review, and we are awaiting the advice from the experts before we proceed. So there's no mystery. It is not our contract. There is no clause in there that we believe needs to be hidden from the public. I have already disclosed the main terms in the 50-50 production share agreement, which means that we get 50% of the profits after there's a deduction for the cost of investment. The cost, Minister Patterson and I have been briefed regularly, Minister Nafskin. To date, it is going to cost $4.4 billion to develop the laser field. The vessel alone will take up close to $2 billion, and then of course the undersea infrastructure and everything else. So at 100,000 to 120,000 barrels per day using a multiplier of 50, that should give you an idea of how much money we should be earning per day. 75% of that goes to cost recovery, and 25% is shared between the partners. Again, Exxon, Hess, CNOC, and the government of Guyana, until the 4.4 billion is recovered, and then we go straight into a full 50% partnership. Government did, yes, tweak the contract, because what we inherited was a contract that says that there shall be a royalty of 1% payable by the government from its own share, which meant that we were getting zero royalty. We were able to nudge Exxon and its partners, and so we've now put a royalty of 2% on the gross. So on an annual basis, we move from zero to about $8 billion per year will be coming in addition to our profit, and we believe that we have made some significant gains there. So the main issues are known, but as I said, we have been both advised by the international lawyers, and also we are restricted by the legislation itself, which, as I am pains to point out, was an amendment that was put in place by the previous administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Trotman. We move now to Minister Patterson.
Yes, thank you very much. I think the only question that I could have possibly attempt to answer was the one on corruption. There are a couple of things we would have done immediately since we took office. The Public Procurement Commission, that's up and running. Obviously, that is a safeguard. It's supposed to be a safeguard against corrupt procurement practices. We also have something which is the Bid Protest Committee, whereby bidders can protest the award. They have been protested already. All of these are mechanisms that weren't available post pre-2015. We also have an inspectorate division, to what we know that we can do post-construction sanctioning. You probably would have noticed with the Cato Secondary School, that's what was done. We sent in persons after and analyzed the contract, analyzed the work done, and took sanctions in it. Obviously, we have better monitoring, capacity building. Those are the two main issues which I particularly focused in the ministry, in the sense that we have better monitoring. What previously would happen is that an engineer from Georgetown would run a project in Mali, and he would bring the regional engineer or somebody in the region or camaraderie in the region, because it was tremendously difficult to go to Mali. And I'm talking about just in Mali because we operate nationally. And they would do valuations and they would do monitoring from Georgetown or from somewhere else. We've done that. We've put engineers in each and every region, even sometimes even 2 o'clock work full team to have on the site and on the job monitoring of it. And we put in a far better reporting system. And obviously one of the areas where I think works best for corruption and the prevention of corruption, public disclosure. You're invited to go on my website, the ministry's website, and you will see there the name of the contractor, how he won, his progress on the money he collects, what he's supposed to do, and those things like that. And the best monitors for quality work are you, are the people in the communities, and I get the regular feedback. So I do think that as a whole, obviously corruption is not something that we can stamp out immediately. immediately, because the mere fact that the society has too long been accustomed to doing business in a certain way. You stop by traffic police, you try to offer inducements rather than pay the 7,500, which is the fine. You want anything done in this country, and that is where all this corrupt activities start. You never go through the process. You call a minister. And the minister gets up and says, oh, you're my friend, I can help you. No one actually means up of them. So we become a very impatient country with the system, and that is where and just by jumping any level, as long as you jump one level, you start to, in a process to get things done, you start to encourage corrupt activity. So all in all, I mean, I do think that if we together sit and invest in it, we can get it. Slow progress, slow, I mean, that can't happen overnight. But with the measures we put in place, there has been, of course, internationally served, if you want to be very honest, that we've risen in the corruption perception index. Even though we still have a long way to go, we seem now to be less corrupt than we were last year and the year before, etc., etc. And we work on that hopefully every year, the perception and the reality becomes a reality, and we can invest in it. So thank you.
So the question on the collaboration between the Ministry of Education and ICT and telecommunications. I want to start out by saying that I did not mention that we've actually, the ministry through its e-government unit, connected 101 schools, university, 3 campuses, UG, and also the School of Agriculture. So part of our program has been making sure that we're taking internet access to high schools. We've started with the high schools, and we've gone to some locations, wireless and satellite, for example, in Latham, St. Ignatius School. Recently also, in fact, just about 2 months ago, we had through the International Telecommunications Union, which is a UN agency, we actually had some experts come down and do some training with our head teachers and with the Ministry of Education in the area of cybersecurity. Because as you know, as you give young people access, we have to make sure that it's safe and we have to monitor the sites that they're going to. So I want to say that there's a lot of collaboration with the Ministry of Education. In terms of the curriculum, there are some schools in Guyana where they don't start to do ICT until maybe the 3rd form. And really we're recognizing it's something that should be done even at a lower level. But even as I say that, the other day I was speaking to a member of the Diaspora and speaking to his son, and his son doesn't do ICT as a formal subject until age 13. So, you know, it varies, but we certainly want to make sure that we provide the opportunity. E-government is very, very important. One of the questions was about e-government. Our aim is to put more and more government services online. Last week I was happy to have a member staff who went to renew a passport, and it took 7 minutes exactly to renew a passport. Eventually we want to make sure that a business registration can be completed online. We've done a lot of work with the passport office already. Your driver's license, you should be able to put it online. And here we're not talking about just filling in the form and then walking in with the form. The time it takes to physically go to these locations. We want to ensure that people in Berbice, for example, don't have to trek down to Georgetown to go into the passport office to get a passport. So I'm really excited that we're making headway in all those areas. And of course, once you can put e-government, in fact, I did a trip to Estonia the other day. We've got some work we're doing with IDB to ensure that we start to do an e-parliament and an e-cabinet. And once you put more things online, you're improving transparency. So that is the goal that we're working towards. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister Kathy Hughes. And finally, last but not least, Minister of Business.
Thank you. The question that was put to me had to do with local content and whether any thought had been given to a special arrangement being in place for diaspora companies. But let me just correct something that was said in the preamble to the question. I did not say that there is a difference in the way domestic versus foreign companies are treated in Guyana. I think I made it very clear that there is a non-discriminatory environment where there is no difference in the treatment of foreign companies or local companies. So with that in mind, what can we do to create a special arrangement for diaspora businesses or investors? It needs to be borne in mind that in terms of the incentives and those sorts of allowances that are given to companies that make certain investments, as I said, those are enshrined in laws which do not allow for any special treatment for any one type or group of investors. Having said that, I think some recognition has to be given to the how businesses that are not resident in Guyana and may have to travel to Guyana or come to Guyana especially to do business, how they are treated, and the fact that we need to ensure that the system in place that handles their business and handles their inquiries is an efficient one that doesn't have them either spending more time than they would have planned to, or having to come back again and again just to carry out some very basic transactions. Now I know Go Invest has done a lot of work over the last 2 years to improve the whole process of investment facilitation, and I believe Mr. Vorway is here with you. I don't know if he's making a presentation. I believe that no, he's not. Okay. But a lot of information is available on the website of Go Invest. The process, as I said, is a non-discriminatory one, but a lot of advanced work can be done by companies that are looking to come to Guyana to make sure that they have all the information that they need. Like, there is no special arrangement for diaspora companies. If the diaspora as a group or as a unit wishes to offer suggestions to how Go Invest can improve the service that it offers to the diaspora companies, we would be more than willing to take it on board and see if it's something that in a non-discriminatory way can be applied to our processes. So I hope that answers the question. I really do. Thank you very much.
Join me in thanking collectively our ministers, including Minister Abdul. Several of our ministers are likely to be here this afternoon, including ones for the second ministerial roundtable. But I'd like to think that each of our ministers is amenable to a question being sent electronically, or before they depart, find a way to enable you to know how to reach them by phone. Because I know that lots of appetites have been whet with what has been said and what's been responded to. And we also know that there's limited time for us to have that engagement here. And so let me thank you and thank the ministers and invite our PRO to tell us how we're going to manage expeditiously the feeding of the body.
Left-handed, we start from the left. So will the tables from the left please go, then we go in this order. The very capable staff of the Ramada Hotel, they're waiting for you. So all persons on the left side, we have two